Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Chaps Chatting Champs. Good morning, Brant.
Good morning, Josh.
And good morning, everyone. Brant, did you know that the Con of Heroes is only 2 weeks away?
Wow, yeah, it's interesting when it's like the beginning of a month, right? So you're in one month and then you have to plan for the very first week of the following month.
Yeah,
First
it's
weekend in May, correct?
yes, yep. And it's so crazy to me that we're already back. I went last year, you went last year, and what a fast year it's been that we're already back to the beginning of May.
Here it
Crazy
comes
how time
again.
goes. Yeah. So, with that being said, what we're going to be talking about in this episode is say you're generally a solo player and you are getting the opportunity to play multiplayer for the first time, whether you are going to Con of Heroes, and if so, that's awesome. But maybe you're just going to a meetup or at the game store, you're having friends over, whatever it is. You normally play solo and you're getting to play multiplayer, and it's a pretty different game at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, when you start playing with people and you start playing with people you don't necessarily know or you don't know what they're going to be bringing to play with, it can change up your thought process. Also, just your styles. Some people are just straight up, they're going for damage. They want to win, and not worry about all the other things. And other people want to control the whole board state. They want to see their whole deck come out. And so you're playing with some different styles and things like that.
Yeah, that is all really good stuff. And I'm really glad to have you here because people have been asking me for this type of video for a little while, how to prepare for the con or multiplayer in general. And I think I don't really have great answers to those questions because this is, mostly new for me as well. It's a very occasional experience that I get to have. So I'm glad to have you, the very much multiplayer expert, here to answer these questions. So then I think one of the first things I would want to know going into something like a con, but it could maybe apply to just general multiplayer as well, is how many decks should someone have prepared? Because one thing is, you might be traveling. In this case, you're going to Minnesota for a convention. And if you're flying, it's kind of a pain to bring all your cards. I happen to be driving because I would rather drive for 12 hours than deal with airport hassle. So, but that's just me. So I have all my cards, so I don't have to worry about it as much. But if you were going to have a number of decks prepared for something like this, how many do you think you should have?
Well, I guess the minimum is one, but that's kind
Okay.
of a silly answer for something. So if you're talking about a game day, I think one is okay. I think four is probably really the minimum for something like the Con of Heroes, and I think the correct answer is eight, or the best answer.
Okay,
So
8.
now let me make sure that I make that clarify that because space is at a limit. So what I would absolutely do is I would make my decks, whether it's Marvel CDB or whatever, and then I would have them saved somewhere. So if it's me, I'm physical cards. So I'm going to lay out the decks, snap a picture of them, collect those cards, make the next deck. If I use the same cards, then I'm basically going to have what I would call a sideboard of cards, so that I can
Mm,
just pull up the picture on my phone, maybe put it in a file where you can quickly find it, or if it's your Marvel CDB, somehow mark the ones that you're going to have for the convention. I still think a picture is better because I could just look at it quickly and find those. And then, oh, I'm going to have two aggression decks. So all I have to do is swap these cards in and these cards out, which usually, if somebody's setting up a game, you have that 10 minutes, 5 minutes to make a new deck. So then for each one, you can have a deck that focuses on what that aspect is. So I'm all in on damage and aggression, or one and also one that supports and or controls in that. So I'm just going to be a minion killer if I'm in aggression, or I'm going to hand out, whatever it is, the combat trainings and all those kind of things to people, and I'm going to thin my deck out and just be control for that aspect.
okay, so 8 decks is a good number to be able to cover pretty much all your bases. You're always gonna have some options.
Yep.
And then I think along with that, then another thing I've seen people express concern about is, if I am building all these decks, they might be based around certain cards, and some of those might be unique. So, what are we thinking would be the best way to handle that sort of concern?
Yep. So the best thing to do is to talk to the table you're about to play with. So if you are built a Yondu Voltron deck, you just need to make sure people know, hey, I'm playing a Yondu Voltron. I need to have Yondu, otherwise this deck won't work. Or I'm building around Iron Man, or whatever it is. I need to have all the Guardians allies, or probably X-Men is going to be the trickiest one, especially if you're bringing
Mhm.
Cyclops, and letting people know kind of what's in there. I don't think you need to go through every single unique thing you have, but kind of focus on a few of them, the Quinn carrier, if it's looking like there's Avengers, those kind of things. And then you have options at the table. So you could either play, hey, if I draw one of those cards, I'm going to discard and draw a new card, which is breaking the rules of the game, but allowing for
Mhm.
fun to continue. Possibly removing that, or better yet, like I said, a sideboard. Just bring a sideboard. So I said you'll have a few cards for each of the other aspects, and in addition, maybe if you know you're going to be playing an X-Men deck, just stick 4 or 5 other X-Men in your sideboard so you could swap them out if somebody has it, and you could even do it in game. So instead of drawing a card and then discarding to draw a new one or whatever, you could just be like, oh, I'm actually going to get rid of Storm because somebody's playing Storm, and I'm just going to pretend I drew this card over here.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I know when we played Con of Heroes last year, I definitely encountered a couple times where somebody said, "Hey, I'm doing this kind of weird thing, that's a little bit outside the rules. Is everybody okay with it?" And generally, people were.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's
that's the
it.
biggest deal is you make sure you don't sit down at a table where if those little rules are broken, there's somebody that's going to be worried, concerned about that. If they know, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and I think most people are, and some people just tell you, hey, I don't think that's a good plan at the table, and then you'll
Mhm.
know from there. All right, well maybe I'll play this deck instead, right?
Right.
Do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's I like that phrase you use, so that fun can continue, because this is kind of a unique experience, whether again at the con or you're just meeting people you've never met before, and there are going to be slightly weird issues that the game forces you into. So it's easy to just say, well, we could just do these kind of weird things to overcome them, whether it's ignore the uniqueness rules altogether or, like you said, just swap some things out. It's
Uh,
really not that big of a deal to me, at least.
I didn't even think about ignore the uniqueness rules. That's totally could be valid as well.
Yeah, like for me, that one, that's I've seen that discussed in a lot of different contexts. And to me, as long as you're not doing it on purpose to create some ridiculous
Right.
combo, but it's like, oh, you have Ironheart in play, I have Ironheart in my hand, I'd like to play it again this turn as well. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Usually uniqueness is more theme than, power balancing. So I don't know if that's that big of a deal. So, okay, so hopefully we have solved our uniqueness issues. And then I guess the last thing and the bigger topic, and I know you're going to expand on this more in a separate video, but
Yep.
we're going to talk about it some here, but we're still going to try to keep the video a little shorter. We're actually going to be breaking the format just a little bit. You joked around about breaking the format last week, and then we did a little bit this week, but just to be timely with Con of Heroes coming up. So now we're getting into sort of the meat of it. You've been building solo decks for a while. Now you're getting a chance to play multiplayer, and the decks are going to look different in that case. So let's talk about sort of maybe the bigger picture of how decks are different in multiplayer.
Yeah, so when you're trying to build decks, the big things that you can do in multiplayer that you can't necessarily do in solo is you can focus a lot more. So you can be the thwarter. Like all I'm going to do is thwart. I'm never going to worry about damage. I don't need damage cards in my kit. What I have in my hero kit is enough, to get by. And I'm just going to be the person who tries to remove as much threat as I can every turn. You can also play full support. So you can just be the person who's just handing out endurances to people, giving away resources. Your job is to get down Avengers Mansion and helicarriers and give those out to people. And then just a little bit of dabbled control here. Oh, you need some threat removal. I'll take care of a little bit, maybe inefficiently. Oh, I'll be the one to ping the tough off of that minion, whatever it is. You can do those kind of things. And then lastly, you can stay in alter ego for a while if you want. Now, it's probably best that one player be an alter ego at a time in 3 and 4 player games, but if you're an Iron Man or a four-handed character who wants to build up a little bit, you could just stay down in alter ego the first turn. It really shouldn't be a major issue against most of the villains, and you could maybe even stay down a second turn, sorry, not a seventh, until you are kind of built and ready to flip and maybe stay up, and then you'll allow other players to flip into alter ego. So you really have that option of staying in alter ego the first turn and thinking about when you build that a Groot that really wants to find fertile ground or something like that. Even an Ant-Man trying to find that helmet, although Ant-Man can get a lot done on turn one.
Mhm.
But you can kind of plan to be in that alter ego. And obviously I imagine there's people that are excited to do the Gambit alter ego, stay in that form. But those are options that you have. So you can think about those things more. You really don't have to worry about covering for your own weaknesses. That's what the other heroes will do. So
Mhm.
it's nice. So if you're a one thwart hero with limited thwarting in your kit, like Spider Man, you just say, okay, I'm not going to make that my focus. I'm going to go protection, and I'll try to block for 3 people a turn, and you worry about the threat, right? And I'll keep you alive. So those are some of the options that you have.
Yeah. I know 2 things I'm really looking forward to being able to do this year. Last year, I, pretty much just played Drax the whole time, and
Okay,
Drax just kinda plays the same solo multiplayer. You just attack straight ahead till the game is over one way or another.
for sure.
And I played a little bit of Ironheart Nova because they were brand new, but I didn't build particularly good multiplayer decks. So this year, like you're saying, there's a lot of things you can do. You can lean in and be focused on a certain role. And again, you're going to want to talk to the table about that when you sit down. Like, hey, I
Right.
kind of want to play this Cyclops aggression deck that's really good at dealing a ton of damage. So I'll be the damage dealer if that's okay with everybody else, kind of thing. And the other thing that that does is it allows you to play certain heroes that maybe don't work as well in solo. I certainly think you can play everybody in solo to some degree of success or another, but there's no denying that some work better. Like you say, they need to go to alter ego more. Like I'm thinking I'm pretty much definitely going to be bringing a wasp deck because I make it work in solo really well, I think, but I really would enjoy to do some alter ego stuff in multiplayer. So there's just certain heroes, Valkyrie it certainly works much, much better in multiplayer.
Yeah, play that Valkyrie minion killing deck. I mean, it's unbelievable. She kills minions like no other hero in the game. You get
Mhm.
her into a 3 and 4 player game where there's a decent number of minions coming out, 1 to 2 every turn, and she takes them all out, and you will have so much fun being Valkyrie, unlike what you can do in a solo game with Valkyrie.
Yeah. Yeah, she's still great at killing minions in solo, but unfortunately that doesn't win you the game or stop the threat from accumulating most of the time.
Right, right,
So it opens up your hero options and just in the general deck build itself, there are certain cards that I rarely use in solo just because they're expensive or they don't affect the board state enough to really be a viable use in solo play. Like sticking with the theme of aggression, there's a card like follow through that's really really cool and it boosts all your excess damage, but it costs 2 to get down in the card itself. So you're basically spending half your hand on a card that doesn't affect the board state in any way, which is really
right.
hard to do in solo unless you're just in a great position or playing an easy villain. So you can use cards like that or just lots of more expensive allies that you could normally afford to get away with because you could just play one card on your turn and it'll be fine because there's 3 other people at the table that are going to help you manage the board.
Yeah, yeah, definitely looking for those cards and cards that work better. I would actually implore everybody to try out the alliance cards. I actually have them sitting right here. So if you've never played the alliance cards before, this is a great thing to try out because these let all players pay for the cards. You can even do something like problem solvers and then hand out sense of justice to players and be like, "Can you just use the resource I gave you to help me pay for it?" So that's a really fun way you could do it. I highly recommend. This is what I would totally be doing is getting X-Men games in. I think
Mhm,
those will be really fun and getting all of those X-Men supports because they all say anybody can use them.
mhm.
So I always kind of joke around and say, once you play one, just throw it in the center of the table. Like it's available for anybody. Let people know this is available and see who can use it effectively between the X Jet and the Danger Room and the X Mansion and all those. They're really fun ones to do. So I definitely think getting that X-Men game in would be really fun. Getting lots of game times, bring your 3 trainings, for your aspect, and get them out on all those villains. So that might be something that's sorry, not the villains, the allies. That might be something that's harder to do in a solo game. Is that kind of build up, but with a team, you can really build it up, and all of a sudden you'll realize, wow, we are a team of X-Men.
Mhm. That does sound awesome for sure. And now I think I actually haven't planned very well. I'm kind of scatterbrained. I haven't planned too much of what I'm going to be bringing. I do want to bring an Adam Warlock like pure support deck. You mentioned that in one of our earlier episodes, and I just love the idea of that. Of almost every card I'm playing is benefiting somebody else in
Right.
some way. I think that sounds like a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm probably going to be playing Wasp just because I love her so much, and I can't play Drax. And so because he definitely never got played since I retired him, he's just we're just not going to talk about what may or may not have happened there. But yeah, now I definitely need to play an X-Men hero. So one more thing then I want to think about is there anything, and I'm not sure if there is any good answers to this, that you should try to avoid or anything you shouldn't do? The thing that's coming to mind here is say you're running the symbiote suit in your deck. At the very least, make the table aware of the fact that you might be playing a symbiote suit and are they okay with it?
So
Are
it's
there any
so
other do's
funny
and
that
don'ts there?
it's so funny that you said that because the first game I ever got to play with Steve in person from Play the Game, I was Groot, he was Hulk, and we dropped symbiote suits on the first turn for the rest of the table.
Yay!
So maybe I don't consider that as much of a don't as you do.
Not so much a don't, but just maybe it's best that everybody knows about it ahead of time, I guess.
I think in terms of play, we kind of went over the things with the uniqueness rules and what the table is expecting. Be prepared for four-player games to be long. Make sure like the typical convention things of make sure you're getting enough sleep, realize people might be tired. So when you're dealing with people's emotions or if somebody really wants to do something at the table, like, oh, it would be helpful if you did this, but they just don't want to, just let it be. You know what I mean? On that note, I would almost say prepare to play on standard a lot, especially if you want to play 3 and 4 player
Mm,
games. You're
mhm.
going to get a lot more games in. Are you going to have a ton of challenge? Not necessarily, but again, like I said, you'll get a lot more games in, and you'll be able to rotate who you're playing with. Which, for me, as a social butterfly, is definitely something that I'm looking to do. Is how many people can I get to play a game with? So be prepared for that, and then just plan to play in those events that they have planned. I mean, I imagine most people won't avoid them, but be prepared to just jump in and play with some people and see how those things go because that's definitely a unique experience that you get to do. So maybe the like, don't get your mind set on I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and be disappointed if you didn't, but instead just prepare to be open and play what's available at the time.
Oh, yeah, that's really good advice. I like that. Just sort of be generally fluid. You're gonna have fun no matter what's happening, so just try to roll with it. And along those lines, just and this could also again apply to just sort of a general meetup with strangers. In my experience, the people who play these types of games are all generally very friendly and very easygoing. We're all people and we all have our quirks, but in general, so I would encourage you if you are going to something like this and you're nervous about maybe meeting up with strangers, just try not to be because you can just walk up to a table and say, "Hey, do you mind if I join you guys?" They're probably going to say yes in a very friendly manner. So I think that hopefully will be a very helpful general overview of how to approach a meetup or the upcoming Con of Heroes. And Brant, you just said something about wanting to play with as many different people as possible. I certainly want to say, I know some people have reached out to me looking to hopefully get a game in with me during the con, and I'm all for that. And if you have done that, it wouldn't hurt to maybe remind me that you did that, just so I don't forget about it. And if anybody else is going to the con and wants to track me down, please feel free to message me in the video here, or I've got my email address. You can get me on Discord, places like that. And I'd be happy to play with as many different people as possible. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has any other questions or wants any other tips, feel free. I will peruse the comments on the video here and I can answer any questions. You can also get me on the Brant on Discord. So feel free to tag me and ask any other questions that you might have. If you want to send me a deck and say, does this look good? I can let you know or whatever, any of those kind of things.
Hey, that's very, very nice. And speaking of very nice, Brant is going to be doing a more in-depth video. So keep an eye on that. I'll be sure to put a link to it in this video when that one goes live. And I think that's going to do it for us. So have a good week, Brant.
Have a good week, Josh.
And have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.